Welcome to the Real Advisor Podcast. TRAP, Trap. Please follow us and join in the conversation on Twitter @Advisor Podcast, where you can suggest ideas and themes you'd like the Trap team to discuss. Also remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave a 6 out of 5-star review on iTunes. Doing all this really helps us, which means we can do more to help you. Now let's head over to the studio for the latest pile of Trap.
Yes, indeed. Welcome back, dear Trappists, to episode 11 of the Real Advisor Podcast. TRAP, Trap. My name is Nick Lincoln. Joining me as ever are the 3 other horsemen of the apocalypse: Andy Hart, Alan the Storyteller Smith, and Carl the Wodgemeister Widger. Welcome back, gentlemen. We have a show packed full of absolutely very little, so let's start unpacking it straight away. Whoever's sniffing down the microphone, that would be good if you could stop doing that, please, Carl Wodger. Apple reviews. Andrew, we've got some lovely reviews coming in, and we're going to mention them on the show because it makes us feel good, but it also lets other Trappists know that they're not alone in listening to this and perhaps liking it. You've got a review for us, I believe.
That's exactly right. I've been given the coveted job of reading out the reviews. We're starting from the beginning. So the first review is from Jeffers13, left on Apple Podcast, entitled "Sharing is Caring," 5 stars. Thanks to the 4 Musketeers who share some great ideas, views, and opinions with us. You would be foolish not to take time. It's not the guy's not written it correctly. Andrew. The guy has not written it correctly. You tell he's done a lot of rehearsal for this. You would be foolish not to take time to listen to this podcast once released in its fullness. As a professional, we are great at sharing and helping each other. So thank you very much for leaving that review. I'll be reading out all the reviews. We've got a little bit to catch up on. And please do.
You might not actually after that effort. You might be somebody else.
You might have lost your job.
I've intentionally balls this job up, so I'm not asked to do this again.
Important for everyone to note that Andrew volunteered to do that job.
That's magnificent, magnificent. And you can only get better now, Andy. So that's the good news for all.
I know. I was starting off.
Okay, so to give this episode a timestamp, if you're listening to it a little bit after the event, some topical stuff. Mr. Smith, rediscovery meetings.
Yes, this is just something that came to mind over the last couple of weeks. As any regular listener, if you listen to the last episode, you'll know I am currently and still in monk mode. So monk mode means booze-free, no alcohol. I'm fasting every day, meditating, and exercise. So I'm just trying to, get ready for the rest of the year and spending a month living like a monk. And as a result of that, this exercise thing is quite interesting. So I've been going to the gym regularly. I've got a personal trainer, Andrew. Shout out to Andrew of Executive Fitness Club in London. But I've known Andrew for years and years. And he has changed his whole kind of new client onboarding process, how he would deal with a new prospective personal fitness client versus what he was doing, say, 10 years ago when I first met him, which was next to nothing. And so I said to him, well, he said to me, actually, why don't I take you through the process as if you were a brand new client that I've never met before? I said, yeah, let's do it. And he's got a fantastic, process now. He did all sorts of deep analysis. And he gives me a form to fill in online, all these sort of tests and measures. So we sort of effectively restarted our relationship as if I was a brand new client. And that just got me thinking, because all of us, and probably a lot of the listeners to this podcast, have changed their own processes in their business over the last number of years. I know that we've got better. We've got a far better process today than we had, 5-10 years ago. And so I'm putting it out there that it might be an opportunity for people to reconsider, even if you've got existing long-established clients. Did they miss out on a better onboarding process because they've been with you quite a long time? And maybe there's an opportunity to go back. And I'm calling it a rediscovery. Some of the questions that we now ask new prospective clients are different. They're better, in my opinion, than the questions we used to ask 5 or 10 years ago. So we're, I'm encouraging my clients. Some of my colleagues have done this already. The clients have been there for quite a while, and so I'm encouraging people to do a rediscovery process with long-established clients.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea. And also on the 4th of Feb, Mr. Smith, what are we sort of semi-hosting? Do you want to put that out there?
Yeah, so I'm in monk mode until the 4th of February, because on the 4th of February, a few of us are getting together. 4th of February, for those who are interested, is I think it's the first round of the Six Nations rugby. We're all quite keen sports fans and rugby fans. And we have the Wales-Ireland game, swiftly followed by watching the mighty Scots defeat the English. So England-Scotland.
He drives. There's 35 seconds to go. This is the one. It's coming back for Johnny Wilkinson. He drops for World Cup glory. It's up. It's over. He's done it. Johnny Wilkinson is England's hero. Johnny Wilkinson. Johnny Wilkinson. Johnny Wilkinson.
Oh, God, come on.
Johnny Wilkinson.
Sorry, Alan, you were saying about
Carl, it's like the football. You never hear the end of 1966, do you? This is the rugby version.
Well, you guys never get to the start of it. Anyway,
to reiterate, I won't be attending on the 4th of February.
Yes,
for that very reason.
We're getting together in a central London pub. We've hired out a room. Any of the Trappists, anyone listening in, if you hear this in time, you're more than welcome to come along. We will put a link to the venue in the so-called show notes. 4th of February.
Very good. Great stuff. So, what else? So the CII PFS battle continues. So I am considering I currently get my certification and my statement of professional standing, my SPS, through the Chartered Insurance Institute. I'm now looking at the alternative, which is called CISI. What's that stand for, actually? Can't remember. Anyway.
Chartered
Institute of Securities and Investments.
I think.
Securities Investments, yeah.
So I'm probably going to do joint membership with them. It's not a lot to join them. And I've had a look around their website. It actually looks pretty decent. And their CPD recording tool looks pretty decent as well. So even if the PFS survives, I don't want to be associated with the CII. They seem to be just an ineptly run organisation and quite shady. That's what I'm doing. Mr. Widger, there was a very popular series on Netflix. Tell us about it, my friend.
Yeah, Madoff, the Monster of Wall Street, I think it's called. It's a 4-part series on Netflix, going through the Madoff story, which has been told lots of different ways before. It's probably not brilliantly made, to be honest with you. It's 4-hour-long programs, but it probably should have been just 2. The point, though, is it's very popular, and it's been watched by an awful lot of people in Ireland and the UK. And I think the reason I just wanted to bring it up was I think it's really important as advisors to our clients that we kind of get out ahead of this and that we're proactive in talking to our clients about the security of client assets. So whatever platform you're on, what third-party securities are there, whatever fund manager you're with, etc., segregation of assets. Because I think making assumptions that, we don't do it Bernie Madoff way, and how could people have been so stupid? I think that's probably not a great place from our clients' point of view. Our clients want the reassurance that, jeepers, there was an awful lot of very clever folks caught out on that, and we've seen the Sam Bankman-Fried debacle going down last year as well. So I just think it's worth pointing out, and just kind of for all advisors to make sure that they do some work on this, and that they have somewhere where they can point their clients to on their own website for the work that they've done internally to just demonstrate the security of client assets and what happens to your money and who gets your money and the security thereof. So I think just important to point out.
Can I just add quickly, there was an article in the Financial Times at the weekend about some super wealthy American family who invested millions and hundreds of millions in Enron, and then he invested in Madoff, and now they're just thrown countless millions at FTX. And it's just, I shouldn't laugh, but it's just beyond ridiculous how, family with sophistication, one of the wealthiest families in the United States, and they've just been throwing hundreds of millions at all sorts of weird and wonderful investment programs.
I'm sure they've made a few quid on some other punts, though, Alan. If you're going to be investing in that many,
that's okay then.
Different ideas.
Well done.
Carl, the Twitter algorithm is giving you the heebie-jeebies. What are you not seeing on the usual feed?
What is happening? Like, perfect example, I don't see any of your 3 accounts anymore. So they used to be.
We blocked you.
Don't tell me Elon Musk has shadow banned us. Our notoriety is.
No, I don't know.
No,
I don't know.
Carl, they've changed it. They've changed the Twitter setup. That you need to now, or if you look at your Twitter account, there's a column that says "For You," which is Twitter's algorithm sending stuff that they think you should be reading or following, and there's a separate column called "Following." And it automatically defaults to the "For You" thing, which in a way is quite a good thing because it means you get things that you won't necessarily have automatically sought out. So you might find other things, which is quite good if you create content on Twitter because you get a wider audience. But you have to, every time you open up the Twitter program, you've got to specifically click "Following," that column "Following," and then you get your normal Twitter threads and stuff that people that you do want to hear from.
That answers that.
It's called latest, not following. It's "For You" and latest is the one that will just do it in order. But it always
also depends what client, what application you're using, doesn't it? Because I use TweetDeck and I don't think I have these problems. I have lists of people I want to follow, and sadly, you guys are still people I want to follow, so I can't avoid your drivel. Andrew Hart, the Terry Smith Fundsmith letter. You're big fan.
Yeah. So if I was Alan Smith telling this story, it'd be one of my close personal friends, Terry Smith, even though
he
accidentally bumped. He is,
Uncle
isn't he?
Tell.
Yeah, he's one of
Uncle Tezza.
He's Uncle Tell, yeah. I've got his WhatsApp number. We speak a bit, but I'm trying to get him on my show.
Stop bothering me on my bloody WhatsApp, Hart.
I've got his email, I've got his WhatsApp, and I know where he lives. It's all a bit weird. There's a fund manager called Terry Smith. I think he's one of the most successful UK fund managers. He runs a fund called Fundsmith. It's the biggest fund in the UK, I think, individual fund. He's sort of heading towards a £100 billion value at some point down the line. Anyway, every year he comes out with an annual shareholder letter of the owners of his fund, and it's very, very insightful. So do a search, Terry Smith, Fundsmith letter. A lot of the financial journalists love to read through it, and he's in the papers at the moment due to his excessive earnings, even though the fund is down by minus 13%. But that's the nature of the business. They earn money when the fund goes down. They earn money when the fund goes up. He also runs a fund administration company that also charges the fund, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, the owners of the fund have done very well.
He's based offshore, tax exempt in Mauritius, pulled out 36 million quid despite his fund being absolutely slaughtered this year. Good for him.
Plus more, Alan. Plus more for the fund administration company.
Yeah.
But anyway, the letter is very insightful. I think it's about 13 pages long. It's a little bit like the Warren Buffett sort of letter every year to the Berkshire shareholders. It's decent. There's a lot of insights in it, so I recommend you read it. Certainly advisors read it. Obviously, I'm not pro-active management, but if I was to be involved in the active management space, it would probably be a fund that I'd look at very closely. Over to you, Nick.
Yeah, points well made, and he's very, very in a world of stuffed shirts and sort of, Quintons and Petronellas. Terry Smith is your Essex lad, and he's very quotable and down to earth, and good value.
Yeah.
Okay,
really,
that's
really
great.
Good.
So that's the topical timestamp given to this episode. Let's move on to the meat and potatoes, and the recurring theme in the Trappist questions that get put to us is around the client acquisition process. How do you acquire clients? What's the route you go through to do it? So today we're going to devote a lot of time to this, and it may well be this could be a part one of 2 episodes, because if we're still deep in the weeds on this in sort of 40 minutes, then we'll carry it over to the next episode. Because this is a facile comment, so laugh at me, but without clients, you haven't got a business, right? They are integral to your business, and you've got to get them if you haven't got them. So I'm going to lead off with this. And I became an IFA in 2001, and I set up on my own in 2008. So I could regale you with stories of how I, as a startup business, got clients in the 2000s. But I think that world has gone. I imagine that world has gone. I did it through the classics: networking, business breakfast meetings, hooking up with local accountants and solicitors, and just asking for referrals. I think the great bedwetting over the Wuhan flu might have put an end to the breakfast networking to a degree. I don't know if that still goes on. And the thing that's changed between now and then is the internet. The internet has changed everything because we have so much knowledge now at our fingertips. So I'll quickly talk for a few minutes here. And if I see your eyes glazing over, I will stop. I would now... If I was a hungry 30-year-old starting a financial planning practice with a blank canvas and 0 or a handful of clients, this is what I would do. For our American Trappists, we love you, but the word is spelled Niche. It's a French word, but despite that, it's a good word. Niche, not niche. I would niche like a bugger if I was starting off from scratch today. And my niche would be, and I thought about this yesterday, but I would go for limited company owners. Okay, that's the first filter. Husband and wives, limited company owners. That's the second filter. They'd be in a specific sector, and I've just picked the creative sector for reasons I might explain a bit later on. So limited company owners, husbands and wives in one sector, aged between 35 and 50-ish. Those would be my 4 parameters. The fifth one would be they must want to work with me digitally. I don't want a face-to-face relationship with these people, and they don't want it with me normally. So they could be based anywhere in the country, but they've got to be switched on with the tech. And if they're in the creative agency field, they probably are tech-enabled because they're designing websites, they're doing other stuff, branding, they know how to use the software packages. Those would be my filters, and I would niche down on that. Really focus on a particular strong area. But as I say, the word is pronounced the way I said it.
So what do you know now you wish you could go back and tell you from 10 years ago as you were getting started?
Niching is important. I wish I would have committed sooner. I wish I would have known the benefits of niching. I think if you have a niche with a good-looking website and you really focus...
It's niche. So I would niche ferociously. So what I did yesterday, those are my filters. I just put into Google, creative agencies, Watford. Okay, I can see people anywhere through a digital financial planning practice, but I thought just look at local firms. So there's some similarity. If I'm sort of in quotes cold calling local creative agencies, and I put that into Google, and the Google search comes up, and there was the creative agency right at the top. It was a sponsored ad for a company called the Rhino Group. Okay, so I looked at them. Now they're based up in Cheshire. SK14 is their postcode. Okay, lovely website, immersive, fluid, as you'd expect from a creative agency. Really good website. I then went onto Companies House. Because you can do this in the UK. I'm not sure about other Ireland or America or South Africa, but certainly in the UK, you can go into Companies House and look under the bonnet of these companies. And what I'm about to tell you is all in the public domain. I'm not giving away any confidences, and the Rhino Group and their directors are not clients of mine. This is just an example I looked at yesterday. On Companies House, the 2 directors of the Rhino Group, Lee Higgins and Stephanie Higgins. Now, unless they're brother and sister, which is highly unlikely, straight off the bat, I've got a husband and wife, limited company. Companies House gives me their month of birth and date of birth. Lee Higgins is born June 1971. Bang, he's 51. He's just on the edge of my filter that I'll take. And his wife is 5 years younger. So now I've got a creative company owned by a husband and wife in my age bracket that I'm looking for. Even better, Companies House gives you abbreviated accounts. Now, they're not good for much anymore, abbreviated accounts. The balance sheet, you can infer stuff from the balance sheet. But what the abbreviated accounts give you are the client's accountants. They're on there. So now I know this company is owned by this couple. I know their ages. I know who their accountant is. And I can look at their balance sheet and say they've got net worth of 1.7 million in the company. So it's a going concern. It's profitable, or certainly has been in the past. I've done that from a 10-minute just looking on Google. And now how would I follow up? And I haven't finessed this. Obviously, I would think about it a bit more. But I'd probably send Lee and Stephanie a copy of the book Enough. And in there, I would put a little card saying, saw your business, looks fantastic. I work exclusively with people in your field, helping them work out whether they've got enough. If you're interested, please give me a call. I'd post that out on a physical thing. I'd email the accountant, Anthony Witch & Co. And I'd say, I notice you've got a client who works in exactly the same field as I specialize in. I help the directors of these companies to financial fruition, and I work with their accountants to do this. My experience is it strengthens the relationship of all parties in the advice chain. I'd love to have 20 minutes of your time, please. I think it's time that you will save if we work together going forward, or something like that. And I would, if I was starting a business, I would be. I'm getting excited thinking about it. What you could, what the information that's at your fingertips, and I would be getting up at 7 a.m. and just doing this to all the creative design people aged between 35 to 50 that are owned by husbands and wives, because you can get the information. It's all there on the internet. We didn't have this 20 years ago when we had to go to bloody breakfast networking meetings and all the other crud. This is what I will be doing day in, day out, but I'll be niching down. And the final thing, why would I do creative design? The reason is because last year I picked up 2 clients.
You'd be niching down.
Niching down. Whatever. Did I say niching? Sorry. Okay. last year I picked up a couple that, and they're going to get married, but they're not married yet, but they're going to be husband and wife, and they both own their creative design agencies in their 30s. So it's just front of mind. That would be who I'd probably go for. But the reason is, if you niche and have a sector, you then become the expert in that sector, and you start writing stuff for the trade publications for that sector. You just Google creative design trade publications and see what comes up. You get in with their trade body, you go to their events, you become one of them, and you see the world through their eyes, and you're known then. Okay, Nick Lincoln, he's the guy that works with the directors of creative design agencies to get to financial nirvana. And that's what I would be doing. And man, if I didn't have a business now, and if I wasn't, in quotes, mature, and my business wasn't desperate for clients, that's what I would be doing. If I was a 30-year-old person, go out there and find your niche, find your sector, and just work it, and become known as the expert. Right, I've done a lot of talking there.
That was brilliant.
Nick,
that was brilliant, Nick.
Yeah, that was fantastic. That's the best thing you've ever done on this podcast.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
It was just a masterclass, Nick. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Nick, can I just? I'm just going to sort of enhance that a bit, or add to it, should I say? So, how do you become the go-to person in that sector? How do you become the expert to follow your particular example, the creative businesses in Hertfordshire, let's say? So another thing you could do is create content for them. And so how would you do that? You would ask them, you would say, look, I'm going to build some material, some help and support for people exactly in your community or the account. And I've got 10 questions. You either phone them up and ask them, or send them an email or something, or a questionnaire, and you say, what are the key challenges of running a creative business in da-da-da-da, all that stuff. And then you sort of cross-referencing that with the financial issues. Are they building to sell? Is it a cash cow business? Is it tax efficiency? And you can create a very nice document, call it a white paper, ebook, whatever. And I think if you do that consistently, then you end up getting invited to speak at the creative blah, blah, blah annual conventions, write in their magazines, on their websites and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you do that consistently. Within 12 months, you are the go-to firm. Most of these firms will have advisors. They'll have sort of random, generic, general advisors. The accountants might have IFAs in-house. But all of a sudden, just through your research, analysis, getting feedback, and then translating that into content, documents, white papers, video, you are the go-to guy. And I think you do that consistently for a year or two, you build a business that way. I've known people who've done exactly that.
Yeah, that was superb, Nick. You are wasted as a financial advisor. You're more a marketing coach as such. And the way you pitched it was right, and it was just very passionate, and you covered all the things on. I mean, you could push a little bit further and say, in an ideal world, you'd send them, connect with them on LinkedIn, then you send them a link to a video that's tailored to them, saying, "Hi, I'm Nick. I know exactly who you are," etc. Without being too stalkery. Yeah. I think the key thing that people have to do is pick your niche carefully. The niche needs to be a viral niche. As an example, for my situation, I used to get a lot of referrals from an accountant that used to work in Hampstead. He referred me to about 3 lovely, wealthy Hampstead widows. They were great clients to work with, but they never really spoke to each other. So the niche wouldn't grow. So the one that you mentioned is creative agency owners. They sort of do speak to each other, even though if they're in competition, and the niche is viral. So yeah, I would say agree with everything you said. The amount of public information out there is phenomenal. Find a niche that's viral. Over to you, Cole.
Yeah, very interesting. And really good stuff, Nick. I'd like to apologise to Lee Higgins for the 84 copies of Enough that he's going to get after this episode.
Can I just, Carl, just before you start, that was just pure. I came up with that ideal client profile, and then that was literally the first creative agency I clicked on, the first one in the search, and it happened. So I think it's out. I think it's there. Sorry, my friend, crack on.
Yeah, no worries. Look, I'm going to come at this a slightly different way, right? So if I was starting up, like you, Nick, everything you said, that's what I did when I started up, right? So the networking like hell and getting out there and lots of cups of coffee and blah, blah, blah. So if I was starting up now, there's a couple of points I'd like to make at the outset, right? Number one, it's hard work. Number two, you got to do the hard work over a long period of time. So you got to be really consistent. And that does not mean this bullshit 24-hour hustle. It just means you got to be really focused and do all the right stuff. Yeah. And we've spoken about this lots of times before. So if I had my time back, or if I was starting out now, I would do two things. I would, yes, 100% do the content creation. And if I can just tell you what's worked really well for us here at Metis is we've created a number of different guides that you can download. We either put them out kind of in social media that you can download from that, or we put them on our website, and we do get lots of really good leads. So it's like business owners, 10 things you should be thinking about when you're coming to retirement, that kind of stuff. So I would 100% do that. So that's kind of on the same track as what you were talking about, Nick. However, when we started up Metis Ireland in 2014, now bear in mind I was 4 years at it on my own before that. One of the best things we ever did, and it has definitely evolved since then, was we did a launch. So big launch, and we got Joe Schmidt, who was the Ireland head coach for rugby at the time, and the Irish team. It was obviously between World Cups, so we were doing really, really well. We just won a Grand Slam. So we got Joe to speak at it. We had Gary Connolly, who's a friend of mine, speaking about passive investing. And then we just did one or two other things about real financial planning. And we filled a big room in a hotel. I think we had 160 people there. So loads and loads of work went in. Now, at the time, we hadn't a bob, but we kind of scraped together this event, and it was absolutely brilliant. Joe was magnificent. Joe subsequently spoke at two more events for us, became a friend of mine before he went back to New Zealand. So we used Joe a couple of times after that. We also did some lunches where we brought kind of high-profile sports people in, or we had a guy called David Coleman. He's a very well-known child psychologist, kind of dealing with teenagers, because that's the kind of thing a lot of our clients were dealing with at the time. So we did a lot of those kind of events where we were bringing experts or high-profile people. But back to the very start at the Joe Schmidt event, we just had a little feedback form. And on the feedback form, so obviously if there was 160 or 70 people there was loads and loads of them who weren't already clients. And we just had would you like Metis Ireland to contact you about real financial planning? And almost everyone ticked yes and gave us their email address. And the amount of business we got out of that, and it was big and it was ballsy, and it was, we were absolutely shitting bricks beforehand to make sure that, we didn't have a room full of 12 people, that we got the people there. It was a lot of hard work. It was very stressful, but by God did it pay off. And then we kind of found our rhythm. And, like the evolvement of those events was the Future You one that we spoke about before, and we're planning that for 2023, a bigger and better one. But I get what you're saying, Nick, about doing everything digitally. Personally, I would, create the content 100%. But maybe everybody is going to try and do it digitally. And maybe you can kind of set yourself out from the crowd by saying, no, we're going to be the guys who are going to press the flesh as well. So, the single, and look, I have other stuff that we've done along the way and that we're doing now that are definitely working. But, I would say go big, just go big, back yourself and do it.
Carl, that's really, really interesting. You're a mature business now, aren't you? Do you set, as part of your business planning each year, a set number of new clients that you wish to acquire in the year?
Yes and no, right? We do have, so we've kind of 4 advisors now who are out looking for new clients, and they have kind of, they do their annual plans, which we did before Christmas, and we're kind of reviewing them now this week actually. And they will set out what they want to get. So we have different levels of clients. So they'll nominate how many of our top level they want, nominate how many of our kind of second level down that they want. And then what we do is, okay, well, if that's what we want, what are all of the activities that you need to do in order to do it? And because we're a mature business, it can't all be about events and golf and all that kind of stuff. But that is there. We're trying to raise the profile of our advisors based on a conversation I had with Alan about 18 months ago, I would say. about doing, them writing blogs, doing video content, all of that kind of stuff to raise their own personal profile. But look, having said all of that, it'd be wrong to say that we don't get most of our business via referral. And I obviously that's brilliant because, once you meet someone who's already been referred, I think the initial barrier is already broken down, that you're kind of in already. But we're trying to develop other strategies as well so that, business is kind of coming to us from other sources of places as well. But the reason I'm saying this and the reason my views might be slightly contrary, and I don't know, is that doing only one strategy and honing in on only one thing, if you're setting up on your own and then you go through a bleak couple of months on that one strategy, well, you might get kind of disenchanted. And that's really, you want to build momentum, and momentum is massive. Build momentum and then keep it going.
Andy?
Yeah, I agree with you, Carl. Yeah, you have to try a few different things. It needs to become you. You need to be constantly, on the lookout to build clients. It does depend on what your background is. Are you an insider? So you've got previous experience in financial services, so you've got somewhat of a head start, or you're an outsider coming in from a totally different business and it's sort of a second career. Also, a practical point that I sort of do mention quite a bit to younger advisors, you need to become quite good at becoming referable and also know how to deal with referrals. So if you're out and about and a friend says, oh, my dad's retiring, my sister's doing XYZ, buying a house, something is a trigger word that that you can help them for. Some inexperienced financial advisors say, well, get them to call me. And that's never going to happen. So you've got to flip on its head. You've got to say to them, look, it sounds like I can help your dad, your sister, your brother, your colleague. Do let them know that I'm going to give you a call. I'm going to give them a call. Just, confirm it with them that I can call them. From a practical point of view, you need to understand how to deal with referrals. You only need 50 families to really run a successful sort of IFA business. And then obviously from there, you're then going to go for growth. So I think the real challenge is going from 0 clients to, let's say, 25 or something, isn't it? 0 to 25 families. That's where you're going to be doing the heaviest lifting, the hardest work. Once you've got there, you've got a bit of traction, then you can sort of, pick and choose who you want to work with, then sort of refine the numbers and play with it from there. But if there's anyone that needs your help, say to that person who's the middle person, do let them know that I'm going to give them a call. Just, pass it through with them. Because take the job on yourself. Whenever you give someone else the job to call you, it never normally happens. And that one person could be a great fan that you're going to look after, but you've ballsed it up because you said, I'll get them to call me, and they're not going to, rather than the other way around. So sort of a small practical point. I think Alan's next.
Yeah, all good stuff. This is really, for me, this is very front of mind for me because, we're a very mature business now, but we're still very ambitious and we're still looking to spread the word, win new business, win new clients. And we're speaking now at the beginning of the year, and I'm looking forward. We do set ourselves pretty ambitious targets. We had the best year in our history last year, despite the fact there was a difficult time for markets, investments. So we're sort of honing our thoughts and ideas, and so I've got a lot of things I can share. In the interest of time, I just want to say there is what you've talked about there, Nick, is in particular, there's kind of what I would call sort of slow burn, things you would do for a while that you build up relationships and build up clients and relationships with accountants, which will take a while. There's also quick wins, I think. There's things that you probably could do if you need to be a bit brave, but there's quick wins that you could get a quick return with an opportunity to speak to people. Let me tell you a brief story to tell you something that I did some years ago.
Grab yourself a drink, a very long drink. It's story time with Alan Smith.
Heart's gone.
Yeah. Anyone who's watching this on YouTube, Hart has disappeared. Heart's left the room. Oh, he's back. He's got himself a drink. He did get a drink. Well done.
Very good.
Is there gin or vodka in that? Looks good. Now, so when I got started, which was 2004, those people who are old enough to remember those years, the dominant piece of news in personal finance around that time, it started a couple of years before that, but it was still ongoing, was the saga of a firm called Equitable Life. who were one of the largest and most successful investment, insurance, pension companies in the UK. They were established in like 17 something, one of the oldest companies in the world, 1760 or something. So they've been around forever, and they were very famous in that and all their TV adverts, and they were prolific. They were everywhere. They advertised, we cut out the middleman. They had their own internal salespeople. And if you were an advisor in IFA, you couldn't get access to their products. And so they said, we don't pay commission to all these middlemen. That was the sort of the sales pitch at the time. I mean, they paid their own internal salespeople plenty, but that was exactly. So as a result of that, a lot of the professional classes that were well known for having, judges, lawyers, doctors, surgeons, very senior professional people, very wealthy people were attracted and sort of cut out the middleman. So they were hugely successful. And without going into detail, I mean, look it up if you don't know the story. It is an incredible story, but long story short, they went bankrupt. They went bust pretty quickly. And I was watching this from the outside because, of course, as a new sort of startup IFA, we didn't have any clients exposed to that. But I just thought, here's an opportunity. So I think the phrase is news hack. I news hacked. I looked at something that was going on, very contemporary, very much in the press, front page, not just the financial press, but front page of the Telegraph and the papers. So I just decided and completely didn't check with compliance or anything at the time. And so any listener, you should check with your compliance people before you do anything like this. But I decided to take out a small ad in the Sunday Times. And of course, this is pre-internet years. And so literally, it was like an eighth of a page. Cost me about 500 quid. Eighth of a page. And I've still got the clipping from it. It said, Equitable Life Investor, ? For free, impartial advice, please contact this number. Yeah, I didn't think we had a website. We might have done. But it would be very, very rudimentary. Anyway, so it was a complete speculative one-off. Let's just see what happens. And I gave the phone number of the office, which had an answer machine. Again, in those days, it's really showing my age. It was, one of these old-fashioned tape recording answer machines with a tape, a little cassette tape. And I didn't think much about it. So advert went out literally in the Sunday Times. And I looked at it in the paper, bought the paper. I thought, oh, yeah, there's the ad, phone number. Come into the office Monday morning, and the tape, there was so many messages that it ran out of tape. There was about 25 messages from people, and then there was no more to be taken. And then the phone started ringing as soon as I got to the office, and it rang all day that day, the next day, the day after, and it just kept ringing. I mean, a lot was just not relevant. It was just sort of random stuff. But I can tell you, 18 years later, we have still got clients to this day who came from that little one-off. I didn't repeat it. I couldn't handle. I was by myself. I couldn't handle the inbound inquiries at the time. So the moral of that story is there was something that was very newsworthy, and I offered to help people that were in I knew that the very nature of this issue was they didn't have advisors. They've gone direct. You cut out the middleman. Well, now you might need a middleman. You might need somebody. And I did some really good work, if I say so, at the time. It was a sort of one-off opportunity that you could extricate your funds before the gate came down. After a particular period of time, they locked it in. You couldn't get your money out. But for about 6 months, I think, around about that time, I can't even remember the exact detail, but there are clients who are with us now that we just, we saved them. We got their funds out. There was no penalties or exit charges, and it was a really good job. And so fast forward to where we are today, you might not, or maybe you would, but you think about things going on. Right now, if you think about the biggest platform in the UK is Hargreaves Lansdown, right? So most of those people are DIY investors without an advisor often. Now, people have bought funds. If you think about some of the funds over the last couple of years, in the US, you've got the ARC fund. You've got the Scottish Mortgage Trust. It's down about 70% or something, very tech-focused. As a one-off, posting something, again, you wouldn't necessarily put an advert in the newspaper. Maybe you put something, I don't know this world, but Facebook ads or something like that, and just say, are you an investor in X? For an impartial review or something, get in touch. If you wanted a quick win for low-cost investment, that might be an opportunity. Identify where there's a pain point relevant to particular investors right now and offer to help. And I would imagine you're going to get a dozen or a couple of dozen inquiries, of which you might convert a few into clients. It's part of your short-term strategy whilst you're building your long-term relationships as described by you, Nick. Just a thought.
And excellent, Alan, and I love hearing stories like that, which is, you just took a flyer. And I think that probably the point on that is you got to try lots of different things. So if you're talking about, Facebook ads, you can targeting those, you can do that yourself. I wouldn't have a clue to do that clearly, but you can, and you can start changing, who you're targeting and just see where the sweet spot is. So where are you getting kind of some inquiries from? But I think the point is you got to try loads and loads of different things. And I'm sure we could do a whole other show on stuff that we all did that didn't work, so
that would be a long show.
Isn't that the point of it? That you just got to just be really persistent and just keep trying. I think Andy's point is really well made, that the challenge is getting from 0 to 25. And if I was starting out again and I got a couple of my ideal clients, I would just mind them like nobody has ever minded a client. And one of the things that we did was, if we got a couple of really good clients, we would bring them. And I'm a little bit like Alan now. Right? At the time, it was me. So I would bring the client and maybe another one to a really nice golf course and say, bring a buddy. And they know, straight up, they know what I'm talking about, right? Bring a peer, someone you think is a little bit like you, that I might be able to help them. And I developed that from 1 4-ball to 2 4-balls to eventually doing a kind of an annual gig where I might bring 20 or 25 people out. And we still, when we're after a couple of years off because of COVID, we're going to look at doing that again this year. But that was a really, really great way of building relationships. And I think, you're not looking on the 13th tee to ask somebody, have you got a pension fund? It's just, how are you doing? I deal with this guy, and let my client Nick tell my prospective client Alan, oh yeah, Carl looks after my stuff, and it's he does a really great job. All you're looking for is a cup of coffee after that, and again, you're building relationships, and I think you cannot underestimate whether you're trying to do it through content and putting yourself out as an expert. You're trying to build relationships through the digital channels, but you're also trying to do it outside of that as well. And really, you're trying to be the what's the phrase, Alan? The key person of influence in your area. And so, how keep the focus on that? How can you keep doing that? How can you be the go-to guy when somebody has a problem with their, has an issue that they want to discuss around their pension or their investment or whatever? And yes, we all know that then we get them into real financial planning, but deal with the issue in front of the client first. So don't get too evangelical about real financial planning, because you got to be commercial about it. And I think, building those relationships, becoming someone that people know, like, and trust, that's your best way from 0 to 25.
Very good.
But it ain't easy.
Andy.
A couple of points on that, Carl. Yep. Bring a buddy, just not any broke buddies. The what we call ourselves as well.
Insightful, brilliant. Thanks, Andy. You were itching to say that, weren't you?
Yeah. Nobody's broke. Bring a buddy, similar to you.
Was that it? Is that it, Andy?
Drives a similar car. No. I've got more to say. Do call yourself a financial advisor, as Carl says. Don't get too evangelical about financial planning and lifestyle financial planning. They don't know what that is. Say you're a financial advisor. Keep it simple. If you want to be a bit more provocative on that side, you can even call yourself an investment advisor, because often that people are looking for an investment person, even though you are a financial advisor, you are a financial planner, they are going to get behavioral coaching, they don't know any of that. So call yourself a financial advisor. Talking about content, when I set up Maven Advisor, I pretty much launched a podcast alongside it, a money guidance podcast called Maven Money. I'm sort of known as the no bullshit, the no BS financial advisor. That's my niche, I suppose. And if you're going to set up a podcast,
Andy, the ultra crepidarian Andy, he knows about everything. Andy can't be told anything. His name is Andrew Hart. Andrew Hart.
Okay, I'll finish my point. The podcast format is amazing, and I think we're just getting started with it. Hence, we're doing a podcast here. This is a video podcast. The good thing about a podcast is you can get relatively cheap equipment and then just press play and then stop and then upload it. So along with everything else that you're doing the network, I mean, I was a member of BNI. So my story is somewhat interesting. I started as a financial advisor in 2007. So I'm sort of 16 years in this. So I sort of spent 8 years in the old world, rocking up to shitty accountants' offices and shaking hands and drinking bad coffee, going to golf clubs at ridiculous hours in the morning. And then I've run a podcast for about 5, 6, 7 years. So I've had half my life, professional life, in the old dusty world, and half my life in the new digital world. So yeah, I've seen different things along the way with that. So I'm just banging the drum for podcasts are a great way to get your message out there, but you need to be consistent with it. You need to have somewhat of a niche. You need to have quite an opinionated voice, because it's quite a noisy market. And that's about it. Who's next?
Nick, are we? I mean, I've got about 3 or 4 other things I could say here, but I'm just wary of the time and other stuff we want to talk about. What do you think? Should we chat a bit more, or should we carry some of it over to another episode?
Well, I think we can really mine this, and we've got a lot to share. I'm of a mind to draw a line under it for the meaty potatoes for this episode and then we'll give it the proper due care it's due in the next episode. Is that okay, guys? Do you think that makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
Just a couple of things. A yes/no answer, Carl. Alan was just out of my own interest and for the Trappists, perhaps. So, Equitable Life was an organisation based around this concept of with profits. Yes or no? Do you have with profits in Ireland?
Yes.
Okay, sorry to hear that. And Alan's point about I'm going to butcher the phrase, but really, what your Equitable Life advert is a brilliant idea, and what you're doing there. If life hands potential clients lemons, then you can make lemonade, and that doesn't mean you want bad things to happen. But absolutely right, pressure points. An example came to my mind. Down the road from me in Boreham Wood, WD6, there was an IFA called Freddie David, who. About 3-4 years ago now, so it's pretty current. And he a Jewish guy, and he was a big financial advisor in the Jewish community, and he was a wrong one, and I think he's still in prison. If I got his name wrong, please don't sue me. I think his name is Freddie David. He was gambling client money, basically, and living this lavish lifestyle as an IFA, but embezzling client funds. What I would have done, I would have taken, if I'd been a Jewish person, a Jewish financial advisor in the Jewish community, in that example, for example, take an advert out of the Jewish Chronicle and say, there's something, but we know what's going on. Come to us for a free review of your finances.
Yeah.
Now, you're not wishing bad things on people at all, but the fact is the bad thing has happened, and you are reaching out and saying, "I think I can help you." Come to So this thing of making lemonade from lemons is a really good one. The final thing as well, content creation. We're talking about the Alans are big on this. I'm big on. I think we're all big on this actually. It's so much easier now than it was 20 years ago again, because of things like Grammarly. AI, GPT, you'll tell the AI, write me an immaculate blog piece aimed at creative directors in the Stockport area, and it'll do it for you. You've got no excuse anymore.
There's no excuse anymore.
No excuse.
Exactly.
Okay, that's brilliant. Okay, so dear Trappists, thanks for bearing with us. We'll do more on the client acquisition process in episode 12. That'll be part 2 of that, and we shall tie a bow on it. I think it's time we should move over perhaps to answering some of our listeners' questions, because they are still mounting up. The sack is bulging, so let's pull 3 out this week. And Carl and Alan Smith, this is for you to answer, so do be prepped, but I'll go through it. The listener's name is Dar, D-A-R. Many financial planning firms hire people and they eventually leave and take clients with them. How do you keep employees happy within a firm and ensure longevity? What is a fair split between what the company makes and what the advisor makes? I think that last question, that's probably one question too many. But okay, so what do you do with clients, advisors that take clients, and how do you keep those advisors from not leaving with your clients? Carl and Alan.
Do you want me to go out?
Yeah, you go first, Carl. I've got some thoughts.
I think I'm in a pretty good position to answer this, because I was absolutely terrible at creating an environment where people wanted to stay and work here. Being totally and utterly honest. And I did a lot of work on this around 2018, and my focus since then has been to try and create a really great place to work, a really great culture. And I think you cannot underestimate how important that is if you want to build a successful firm. And I think we're in a good place now, but it's ever evolving. So I think number one, you got to create somewhere that's fun to work in, that's successful, that ambitious people can be successful. Sometimes, people are just going to want to break out and do their own thing. That's just life, and that just happens. But I suppose what you're trying to do is make that decision kind of almost difficult for them in terms of saying, look, it's not all a bed of roses out there. I think we mentioned this maybe in the last episode or a couple of episodes ago. There are barriers to entry for people to kind of leave and set up on their own now in terms of the extra compliance, the corporate governance that's required, etc. So having all those ducks in a row. What I've tried to do is, we've mentioned this before, is build pod systems around our clients so that we have an advisor, paraplanner, and a kind of client service person around them, so that protects our business. But it also makes the job of the advisor, we call them private client managers, easier, because they're just out doing, what they're made to do, what they like doing, which is business development and go and get new clients. In terms of, how we reward people, we do it two ways on, new business, new clients that you would bring in, but also key to, I think, our success and why we've retained a really great team now over the last number of years is that we also remunerate people on business retention. So client engagement, how many of your clients are going to give you the net promoter score of the 8, 9, or 10 that you're looking for. So, it's an ongoing battle for any business, of course, keeping your best people, making sure they're happy. And I think the last 2 years or certainly last year was difficult because it was definitely employees market. But I was all over that and making sure I was talking to all of my key people and making sure that they were happy.
Okay, very good. Alan?
As Carl says, it's all about culture. I know this very well because, it's quite some years ago now since I removed myself from the frontline advice model and encouraged my colleagues to step forward into the breach and be the main advisors. So I handed all the clients that I looked after since the day we started the business across to other advisors within the firm. And a number of people told me at the time, you must be mad. You hand the clients to them. All they're going to do is leave, take the clients with them. But no one did. And that was years ago. No one did. Everyone stayed. And we grew the business since then. And why is that? Around about that time, there's a good book called Drive by Daniel Pink. And Daniel Pink talks about how humans are motivated, particularly in the workplace. We think it's all about money, but of course it's not. Money should be a hygiene factor. People should be paid well and competitively. And then there are other key issues that are going to drive their decision making. He talks about the three key issues are mastery, autonomy, and purpose. And without sort of going into too much detail there, if you've got a business and the person who works, your colleagues work with you, are able to embrace that, they're able to become better, i.e. master it. They've got autonomy, so they can make their own decisions. They're not just dictated to, and there's a bigger purpose within the business. You attract the right people. They will stay with you and they won't go down the road for an extra couple of quid elsewhere. So it is all about the culture, as Charles said. It's never ending. You keep going. And from a sort of compensation viewpoint, I'm noticing increasingly firms are just paying advisors fixed salaries. I still believe a little bit old school about incentivizing. I think incentives still work. Of course, you've got to look after your clients, but we're all driven by incentives to some degree.
Yeah.
And so we do pay our advisors, and there is bonuses, and you've got to be doing all the right things and KPIs, making sure that you've got compliant files, all that sort of stuff. But we're a mature business. It's not like we're hiring a bunch of sort of self-employed people, but people are, and pods are rewarded. Our pods run their own P&Ls, and so it is about profitability, and people are well paid, and they are bonused on new business and retaining existing business. But that's an individual business decision. Some really successful businesses do still pay sort of flat salaries and have some sort of bonus scheme, sort of profit share at the end. But hopefully we've covered that, Nick.
Yeah, just one very, very final point. If you're in the business of trying to grow your business, trying to, expand, fixed salaries for me, I don't know. Does that work? That's just my own view on it. I think you got to, as you say, Alan, incentivize people for great performance and for helping in the expansion and the growth of the business. That's just
definitely. Do you know when I started all those years ago, even before when I started as an IFA, the tradition, to answer that specific second part of the question that Dar raised, all advisors, and a lot of them had self-employed people working with them, but when I was going sort of knocking on doors of advisors in those days, there was a traditional model which was a third, a third, a third. So the IFA firm retained a third to run the operations and keep the whole thing going. The advisor took a third of the income, and a third was kept for profit. And you know what? 20 years later, it's not that a million miles away from that. Is that the starting point? You'd adjust that up or down depending on your business, your structure, and your overhead. It depends. Are the advisors self-generating opportunities? You know, that's the lifeblood, as we said already, of growing a business. If you're doing all that yourself, or the company's creating all the new business, all the prospects, everything, then the company's going to have to be, compensated for the cost of doing that. But as a starting point, a third isn't a million miles away from that. That might be quite generous, but broadly speaking, that's where I start.
I like it, and I think if you're trying to build a brand that people can buy into, and it helps them when they're doing their business development. I like it. I think if it ain't broke,
there you go.
Okay, very good. Next question from Trappist Jordan Coldclough, who's on Twitter as @JColdcloughFP, Foxtrot Papa. Hi guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts about passing clients down to new and in particular younger advisors. Your views on the best way to do this, how to go about introducing the new advisor, best ways for the new advisor to handle the transition, be bold and take the relationship back to basics, or avoid rocking the boat at the risk you never really get to know the client properly, and what worries might the seeding advisors have, if any? Thanks. Well, we kind of touched on that in that previous part, but again, Andy, you're welcome to chip in, but Alan and Carl have marked this for discussion, so one of you guys run with that question.
I'll just follow on from what I was just saying, because this is exactly what we've done. First of all, I've handed over clients to other advisors and younger advisors. We continue to do that. And it's quite funny, because when I was beginning to hand clients across, and some of these people I've known for years, I thought they'd all fight tooth and nail to keep me. They didn't. They went, yeah, fine. Yeah.
Why did you think that?
Yeah, one did.
No more stories from Alan.
No, but I mean, again, it's very personal. It's individual. There are some clients you just know really super well, don't you? I know some clients I've knew socially, and I wasn't just going to walk out the door. So, and in fact, there are some clients I still, I'm in the meetings with. So, in terms of the practical transition, it's very simple. You have joint meetings for a period of time. The main seeding advisor, as he's put it, together with the new advisor that's being appointed. You have one or two, depending on what it is. You get them used to it. And I positioned it on the basis that it's not as if you're losing me, because unless the seeding advisor is leaving the company, you say, well, you're getting access to the greater team. I'm still around. If you want to pick, me to join a future meeting, you want to pick up the phone, I'm happy to discuss anything. But day to day, here's John or Mary or whoever who's going to be dealing with your issues day to day. And I think you can position it as a win-win for everyone, for the client who's going to get better, more dedicated service, for the young advisor, but without saying I'm abandoning you and you won't hear from me ever again. And I think the last thing I'll say is our more sort of smaller boutique businesses have got a lot more to add to that than a traditional, the banks and the big nationals who people just leave and you've got to start all over again. Right. Yeah. Here's your new advisor who doesn't know any of the details. So, and we actually make that quite a strong point when we're speaking to particular clients. You're likely to speak to the same organization, for many, many years ahead, which is what clients are really keen to do. Carl?
I think that's a major advantage for me and Nick with our small businesses, in terms of, we say to our clients, we're going to be your advisor basically forever. You're not going to join a bank and it just, a revolving door of advisors. Sorry, Carl, up to you, mate.
No, I've nothing to add. What we do is exactly what Alan has just pointed out. So there's no point in me saying the same thing in
okay, but actually, Nick, just looking at his question again, because I've already said it. Refer back to the thing I said at the beginning about a rediscovery, because Jordan was asking about, do you go back to basics to avoid rocking the boat? Yes, you do. You do rock the boat in a good way. You say, I'm a new guy, I've got all the information here, but if you don't mind, can we just just go back to basics? Can I just ask you some basic questions and talk about, because I'm pretty sure you'd uncover quite a few things that the existing or seeding advisor isn't so aware of. And I think clients deserve that, and I think they'd appreciate it.
Yeah, exactly. You could say, listen, I know you as the numbers. I can see your numbers, but I don't know you as the people. So I just want to learn a bit about you. Right? Is that okay? Okay. Well, we're going to do 3 questions this episode, maybe for future episodes, because we've got so many backed up. So the final one is from Matthew Sinclair, who's on Twitter as @MapSinclair. Also, he's got a LinkedIn profile. I am really enjoying the podcast. I listened to 3 last week on a flight back from Lanzarote. Jesus, Matthew. My question is about suitability letters. In theory, this should be a document focused on outlining to the client clearly what is being recommended why, and any risk warnings. However, often they feel like a compliance exercise designed to cover the firm's arse. For a complex new client who's coming to the office tomorrow, the report is 30 pages. I'm interested to know how long your reports are and if you have any tips. We're often told at events that a 1-page report would be possible, but this would be a huge change from 30 pages. I know, Carl, you've noted to put your answer down there, so I will come to you in a second. I think the 1-page report, that's talking more about the financial planning report, not the compliance bit that has to go with the product being recommended. My suitability letters, I push them right to the limit in terms of how scant they are. I mean, they are brief. And what I use are appendix. So in the suitability letter, I will not describe what a pension is or what an ISA is or what investment risk is. There will be appendix at the back. The actual suitability letter that's written bespoke for the client is about 5 pages long, and you can get it all in there. And what my compliance consultants continually tell me they like in my suitability letters, they are very much about the soft facts and the background to their most recent interaction with the client, the fact that I put in there a cash flow chart that underpins the advice. The templates I see are horrendous things sold by these big compliance firms. They're not designed by human beings. No human being would design or want to read that. That's my tuppence worth there. Maybe Carl and perhaps Andy as well might have a point to raise on this. Carl, what would you say?
First of all, which one of you guys is volunteering me to answer all the questions? Because I certainly didn't put my initials beside all these questions. Anyway, before Christmas, we went through our bulging sack, and we did annotate them with initials. So you did, my friend. So I just got lucky. I just got lucky that I got 3 in a row today. Anyway, I do have a bit of insight because we've done a lot of work on this, and we try to figure this out ourselves because. Matthew is right. Like issuing a 30-page report with just a bunch of compliance is just irrelevant to everybody. So what we try to do is we do a 1-page financial planning summary at the start. Okay. And then we do we try and flesh that out over the following, maybe it might be 5 or 6 pages. So it's like, here's a summary of the product and here's why, and just refer back to that 1-page financial planning summary. And then we do all of the compliance stuff that has to go into everything in an appendix. So that's how we do it. So it could well end up being, I don't think we've got to 30 pages necessarily, but it could be lengthy, but it's very easy for us to focus with the client on the important bits. And almost always it's that 1-page summary is what that meeting is focused on. The client then gets a full copy of the letter and can go through it. But I don't know, do many clients actually go through that word for word? But that's what we do. And we found that works for us.
Andy?
I issue a client a financial master plan that's the output from Voyant, the financial planning software that I use. It's got a 1-page financial plan at the beginning and then an output of all the data. Specifically to the suitability letter, I just play the game. I'm amazed that this complex client has got only a 30-page suitability letter. I've seen astronomical lengths of suitability letters. And I do play the game. I use an outsource power planning company that are amazing. They make beautiful reports, but they're incredibly detailed and complex. I'm almost certain the clients never read them or start to glance through them and get to, I don't even know what page or paragraph they get to. I'm not too bothered. I think you should just continue to play the game, issue horrendously lengthy reports, and just move on. All of the good stuff is done live with the client, either via Zoom or the meeting. You know, you are the financial plan, you are the suitability letter, you're the one that's, telling the client to do the right things with investments and the right products. Don't worry too much about it. Just continue to issue these horrendously long reports because we've got to play the game. Alan?
Yeah, I just quickly, there's a lot, we should spend more time thinking about design design and layout of information. So instead of just having this sort of standard Word docs,
that's it.
Spend a bit of time with breakout boxes and summaries and checklists and bullet points, all that sort of stuff. Build that template. We're doing a piece of work this year to just try to improve on ours. That's one thing. But there are some compliance information, but the best of all in the world, with all the best design in the world, you're never going to nail. And I always see this in the very same ways when you download something from Apple or Amazon and you scroll on your phone like 10 pages full of stuff. You just click accept. And you assume
that's exactly what it's like.
That it's going to be okay. And this is the same sort of thing. Just send this to the client. You can it's all there. It's to protect both of us, both me and you, Mr. Client, Mrs. Client, and us. It's all there. If you want to go through it, by all means do so. But there's information you've got to send to you, and you're never going to design that beautifully. But the headlines and the summaries and the one pager you can make much more accessible.
And isn't that the point? And we've spoken about this before, right? So it's a compliance document first and foremost, right? But how can you turn that into making that an advantage? So make it, make the presentation, make the design, make it more beautiful so that it's easier, at least for the clients, to go through the things that are really important. Because Andy is right, all of the real work is done in the presentation of the plan. But you can't afford not to do this. You can't afford to get this wrong. So why not just say, okay, well, if we're going to do it, let's make ours the very best. And like we've done our terms of business document that we have, I feel it's the best one in the market. So we have made it, as good as we possibly can. So rather than all of these things be a problem, how can we make them take it as an advantage? And again, this is advice I got from Alan Smith about 4 years ago. I think, Alan, you said to me, I can't remember exactly what you said, but said, rather than making compliance being a problem all the time, how can you turn it to be an advantage? And that's, we're so big on corporate
exactly right. Everyone else is moaning and groaning about it, and they're still sending out these crap 30-page reports that the clients hate, no one likes. Okay, so how are we going to take advantage of that situation? We're just going to do it better, make it more engaged. And if a client's got 3 opportunities to speak to 3 different advisors, I know which one he's going to choose if the information is much more accessible and well designed.
So, for an example, look at our website and look at our terms of business document, because I think it's bloody good.
Mr. Hayes.
I just think pick your battles. Carl's going to get about 47 emails now asking for, is there any chance I can have a copy of your client agreement? No, bugger off, you swines. Anyway.
It's on our website.
Yeah, it's free, available. And I didn't even charge Carl for that brilliant advice I gave him 4 years ago.
I think I gave you that.
Or any of the other advice. Or any of the other advice that you've
5 years ago.
I have implemented.
Simmer down, Trap Pack, simmer down. Right, I think we've done those questions there, Justice. Let's move on to what many people call the Culture Corner. Right, in no particular order. In fact, I'll start with you, Andy, because you always get to go live. We'll start with your Culture Corner. You're recommending a book, Richer, Wiser, Happier. Tell us about it, my dear friend.
The book, Richer, Wiser, Happier, How the World's Greatest Investors Win in Markets and Life. I think the life actually is what's a bit more interesting about this book. I think the author, English guy, spends quite a bit of time in the US, sort of follows around 10 to 15 famous investors, Charlie Munger, Manish Prabhai, John Templeton, and spends time in their homes and where they live and how they sort of do their routines. It's a decent book, really, really decent book. I love hearing about these sort of eccentric trader characters. Joe Lewis, the currency trader. If you're into that sort of stuff. As I say, it's the more about their insights and wisdom around life that I find a little bit more interesting than their sort of trading records. But yeah, a decent book, well worth a read or a listen.
Okay, thank you very much, Andy. My one is a book. Mine is a book called Midnight in Sicily by Peter Robb. It's a book that came out in 1997. I've read it a couple of times, and it's front of mind for me because the lovely Penelope and I, TLP, we're going to Sicily in the summer holidays for a week, and it's a fantastic, beautiful island. I mentioned White Lotus a few weeks ago, the series set in Sicily. Midnight in Sicily by Peter Robb is a book. It's a non-fiction book about the corrupt. Go on.
Who are you flying with to Sicily?
EasyJet. God, let's not go down there. Changing your names once you book the tickets. £55 per flight each way. Anyway,
you booked with Nick when you're
thank
Nicholas.
You for bringing that up. I got over that anxiety. Midnight in Sicily by Peter Robb is a book about the corruption in Sicily and how the Christian Democratic Party, which was the ruling party of Italy since the Second World War, Giulio Andreotti was the prime minister about 7 times over that period. And how important Sicily was to winning the elections for the Christian Democrats. And you have the mafia, you have this corrupt Sicilian political system, you have Giulio Andreotti, who I think in the end was indicted, which in Italy is a miracle. But the book weaves that in also with the art and the history and the music and the food of Sicily. It's a really, really nice book. Midnight in Sicily by Peter Robb. As ever, with all of these things, there'll be a link in the so-called show notes. Mr. Smith, the Shaping Wealth Programme.
Well, you're just bringing it back. Sicily sounds great, but bringing it back into our regular jobs. Shaping Wealth Programme is created by a friend of mine, Brian Portnoy. I mentioned his book on this before, Geometry of Wealth. I think there is no doubt that we all believe that going forward, the whole behavioral piece is going to be more important for advisors. It already is, and it's going to be increasingly more so as everyone wakes up to the idea that investment management is increasingly commoditized. And this is a program that we are piloting, or my colleague is going to start on this month. Friend of the podcast, Dan Haylett, some of you will know, Good Egg. He's been on this program, on it last year, and said, to use his words, it was transformational, both on a personal basis and a professional basis. So, worth checking out. Put a link to put it in the show notes.
Great stuff. And last but not least, the Wodgemeister, Bad Sisters, my friend. Tell us about that.
Yeah, last week I spoke about a book by Paul Hewson, a.k.a. Bono. This week I'm talking about a Netflix. Oh, it's not actually Netflix. I think it's on Apple or one of those. It's a series called Bad Sisters, and Bono's daughter, Eve Hewson, is in it. It's absolutely brilliant. If anybody like me is in the middle of dry January and you are looking for things to do, get on it. 10 parts. It's absolutely, it's intriguing and it's funny and it's so well acted, just absolutely brilliant. Bad Sisters, go and get on it. Brilliant.
Cool. Okay, there we go. Listen, we're coming in now at 71 minutes for this episode. I think we've done our Trappists a good turn today. That's a really good effort. Enjoyed that. So the next one, episode 12, we'll carry forward the client acquisition process because Mr. Smith has some more stories to divulge. So
oh yes.
I hope you can wait the 2 weeks for the next set of stories. As ever, please do leave a review on iTunes. 6 out of 5 stars. It really, really does help us get up the rankings.
And
the more you help us, the more we can help you. Subscribe on YouTube, like on YouTube, whatever. If you want to watch us,
subscribe on the podcast as well. The platform,
subscribe on Apple,
yeah. Well,
and vote on Twitter for who should be reading out the reviews from now on.
Yeah, I'll give it a better crack next time. Sorry about that.
I think that might be settled.
You do it, Carl, in your dulcet Irish tones.
Definitely not.
Limerick.
You know that
if you leave a review, make it grammatically correct so I can read it out.
I'm looking
smoothly.
on Twitter. There's a hashtag on Twitter, anything but heart, ABH apparently is trending.
Anyone but heart, yeah.
Right, gents.
And if anyone, and remember, 4th of February, if anyone's around, come and meet us for a couple of pints and watch the rugby.
At the Royal Oak in Marylebone, there'll be a link to that pub in the so-called channels. Gents, bugger off out of my computer. Great to see you all. And Trappists will speak with you in 2 weeks' time. Take care.
Bye.
Cheerio. Bye-bye, everybody.